Okay, so we've looked at a lot of questions that the psychologist will begin to grapple with when he or she is working on a case, a serious crime case. Okay, so once we gather all of that information, and it's worth pointing out that there's never a point where we have all of the information, okay, now we move on to put together the profile. Okay, it's always the case that evidence continues to evolve. New evidence emerges, and although we may have already gathered lots of evidence and put together an initial profile of the offender, that is subject to change as well. So more evidence makes itself known over time and we make amendments to the profile. Okay. So what we're looking at doing, as I've said earlier, in the profile is gathering all the evidence, answering all of these potential questions that we have, and then we come to a conclusion. Okay, who could have committed this kind of a crime when they did and the way that they did? Okay, what kind of a person would commit such a crime? What does the evidence tell us? Okay, and ideally the psychological profile will help to describe these important characteristics of the likely offender that the police are very keen to get a hold of. So we're looking at their likely personality. Are they introvert? Are they extrovert, for example? We're looking at their intelligence levels. Do they have any are they likely to have any pre-existing mental health issues? If so, are they likely to have had treatment for those mental health issues? What's the nature of those mental health issues? Are they likely to have had a brief episode of mental illness which led to them committing the crimes? Or are they likely to have more long-standing mental health issues? Are they likely to be outside of the mental health system so that they haven't actually accessed mental health interventions from professionals? Okay. Are they likely to have been on medication and perhaps they've stopped taking their medication? So a whole range of issues around mental health. Okay. What kind of age is this person likely to be? What kind of a cultural background are they likely to have? What kind of work are they likely to do? What kind of a profession, if any, are they likely to have? And where might they live? Based on all the information that we gather, we make an educated proposition as to where this person is likely to live. Okay, a whole new area of offender profiling that has emerged in recent years is geographical profiling, and this is where psychologists again gather all of the evidence that we've been talking about and more evidence, and they begin to look at the likelihood of the offender living in X locality. Okay, in relation to the crime scene or the crime scenes. Okay, so geographical profiling, although we'll look at it very briefly on this course, it is a whole nother set of expertise, techniques and strategies. Okay, okay, so we come to the conclusion, who could have committed this kind of a crime? Okay. Once we have that together, we have our working proposition, okay, or our hypothesis. What does all of that mean? Well, for example, if we come to the conclusion that this person who has committed this crime or this set of crimes is likely to be a disorganized offender, okay, and there's a disorganized crime scene or set of crime scenes, we'd often make the working assumption that they're likely to be below average IQ. They probably don't have a very good educational background. They're likely to have an unstable work record, more likely to be unemployed, more likely to be unskilled. They're more likely to be socially isolated. They don't have a great deal of friends and family around them. More likely to be a loner and keep themselves to themselves. Sometimes locals will often say, I always thought this person was a bit odd. Couldn't put my finger on it, but he or she was just kind of different. They were kind of just odd. Okay. Apparently a disorganized offender is more likely to have had strict discipline as a child, strangely enough, and they're more likely to be extremely anxious. Okay. So gathering all this information together, the FBI, central to the FBI kind of profiles will be whether this person, are we looking for an organized or a disorganized offender? Okay. And if they're assumed to be disorganized, well, all of those pointers that I've just given you will go into the FBI type of profile. Okay. And that in itself begins to narrow that net down quite a lot. Okay. What does it all mean? We're always gathering clues. Okay. We're always gathering more evidence and sifting through the evidence in a meticulous fashion to help us and to help the police find out exactly who could have committed this crime. Where do we start to commit our resources? Where do we commit our manpower or woman power? Okay. How are we best to organize this investigation? Okay. Where can we put the resources? Who can we put in the various positions on this case? Okay. All very useful evidence for the police to use. Okay. Thank you very much, and speak to you shortly.